Happy Sunday Fun Day. We are live. This is the first live video from the Grayed Up Customs channel. I'm Josh, aka Grayed Up Customs. What we're doing today is we're going to do a live layup. This is probably going to end up turning into a two-part live. The first part I'm going to end up doing all the carbon fiber work and getting it all set up. Then I'm going to pull a vacuum down on everything, and then I'm going to have to do a drop test. So that's going to take, probably half an hour, and then I'll come re-live to actually do the infusion. If you guys are interested in that, we'll see. We'll see if anybody pops on, but we're gonna do the best we can. So what we're making today is a carbon fiber wheel cover, and this is for Bonneville land speed racing or Texas Mile or anywhere that you're doing land speed racing. El Mirage, or they can be for show as well. I've done a couple sets in fancy carbon fiber, and they look fantastic on street rods, hot rods, muscle cars, all that kind of fun stuff. So the fabric we are using today is one of the most difficult fabrics I've ever had to use before. And I'm calling this the Cubert carbon fiber. This is from Composite Infusions out of Wausau, Wisconsin. And it is a triaxial tub weave, and it is not easy to lay up. So what I've done is I've actually got a template on the back side that's temporarily holding the fabric to the material. And what I'm going to do is basically drop this in location here. And once this is set, it's kind of set. I really can't go and double check anything or make sure anything's any better or worse than it needs to be, but there we go. We are squished down. When I run these parts, I end up running an in-mold clear coat. If you follow my Instagram, which is Grayed Up Customs, I do a lot of story videos, and that's kind of behind the scenes. My YouTube stuff is just kind of highlights of the work we're doing. And we work on a lot of different stuff. We do race car repair, we do parts manufacturing, I do custom fabrication for body kits, any number of stuff. Art projects, epoxy pours. I've been doing this a long time, guys. So I've been a professional fabricator for almost 25 years now. I've had cars at SEMA, in magazines, done car interiors, upholstery, dashboard rebuilds, custom car stereos. Like I said, the sky is the limit. If you need something crazy, I am your guy. I don't mind cutting dashboards, getting in way too deep. If you guys are really, really interested in custom stuff, I also made a car called Project Honda Rod. Project Honda Rod is a mid-engine 33 Roadster powered by a Honda. So if you guys aren't following Project Honda Rod, head over to that YouTube channel, watch some videos, all that kind of fun jazz, like, share, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, so we're going to keep rocking and rolling. With any luck, this it came right off. So this is my backer piece, and you can see this is a carbon fiber one. This has actually got a fiberglass back half, and so this is more bollock than it is production. So now we have our first face layer down. Like I said, this is very, very, very difficult fabric to work with. It does not like to conform. Unfortunately, I can't see a whole lot of what's going on underneath here, and normally I like to go around the whole part and really quadruple check everything is set where I want it to be set. But with this fabric, I just have to trust it's right. There's really no way of doing this on a complex shape without really getting nuts. What I am going to do, though, before I put my template away here, is I am going to give this a little bit of a trim. This stuff is paper thin, guys. So if you're trying to do some custom composite work, This is not a reinforcement fabric. It is definitely a base layer fabric only. One thing that you guys are going to want is a pair of really good, fresh, heavy-duty scissors. You can get these at most composite suppliers. I am based out of Minnesota, and we have a local supplier named Express Composites right out of Minneapolis. And so I am very, very, very fortunate. I do not have to wait for shipping times. I can just go over and buy carbon fiber and epoxy and vacuum bag stuff whenever I want, which is very, very, very convenient. And they carry 90% of what a composites person needs. They do not carry the fancy designer fabrics, so I get that from another supplier. But aside from that, they carry all the epoxies, bag films, fiberglass, mold making supplies, etc., etc., etc. Again, this fabric is so paper thin. I do reinforce it with a little bit of that fiberglass cloth just because it's almost impossible to handle otherwise. You can see that I've got a green tape around the perimeter here. When I set up for a vacuum bag infusion, I end up putting the gum tape on the vacuum bag itself instead of on the mold surface. And I just find that seems to work a little bit easier for me. Again, I'm just trimming away the excess right now because I don't need it. Help our other layers lay down a little bit easier. I have run a handful of these. Well, not a handful. I've run a lot of these in the last couple of years. One of the sets that I've run is on a friend of mine's pickup truck. Hello. I can't read the name there, but hello. One of my buddies has a set of these done on the copper reflections or bronze reflections, and that pickup truck goes 240 miles an hour. Pretty darn awesome. So to say that I've got some parts on a 240 mile an hour pickup truck is pretty cool. Again, what we're making here is one of these, except with a fancy fabric. Turkish. Hello to Turkey. So my standard fabric stack that I run on all these, I've got a few different types of fabric here. This is a 6K carbon twill, and this is a 3K plain weave. And so I alternate 6K twill and 3K plain weave on the layer stack. And then what I also do is I'll change the weave direction on all the different layers as well. Gonna try to see what we say there. I am Josh, aka Gray Duck Customs, the one, the only. There's a little joke. If you've ever played the grade school game Duck, 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 Goose, here in Minnesota we say Duck, 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 Gray Duck. So that's where the Gray Duck Customs comes from. It's kind of an inside joke with us Minnesotans. In case you were wondering. So our next step is to lay down the reinforcing layers. This is the AirTac composites specific spray glue. I see some guys using the like the 3M Super 77. I don't use that. It is not the kind of glue I want to be using. So very, very light coats. You don't need a lot to stick the carbon down. And we're going to start off our first layer just standard 0 and 90. So it basically is going up and down and left and right. And we're going going to smash that in the center and work our way up and out. Always working from the center out. Always trying to make the carbon go down nice and smooth. Like I said, the fabric that I'm using underneath it is very, very, very tricky. So I'm trying to make sure that the fabric that we put on top is as tight as it can possibly be to that mold surface. That's very, very, very important when it comes to composite layups. You want to make sure that the fabric is very, very, very tight on your mold. Since I do use an in-mold clear coating, I don't use spray tack on my face layer. All right, we'll see you later. Thank you for stopping by. All right. So there's our first reinforcing layer. Again, that's 6K carbon. And we're going to do the same thing on this one. I suppose I could put my template back in here just to make sure I'm not overcutting anything. Since I have one, we might as well take advantage of it, right? So they say. Always try to keep our carbon fiber from getting too messy on the mold surface. Some of that you can't get around, but we try our best around here. All right. Again, a good pair of shears goes a long way in the composite world. Fantastic investment. You cannot go wrong getting a good pair of shears. Pull a couple straight fabrics out there. So the fabric stack on this is going to be 6K carbon, 3K plain weave, 6K carbon, 3K plain weave, 6K carbon. What that's going to end up at is about 55, 65, well, it's going to end up about 65 thousandths in terms of part thickness. The surface layer that we're using is very, very, very thin. And so we should end up with about 68, 70 thousandths plus the clear coat. Hopefully we're going to end up at somewhere in that 75 to 76 thousandths range in terms of overall part thickness. So what I'm going to do on the plain weave is the same thing. We're going to set that at our 0.90. Light little spray tack. Actually, we're going to set this one at the plus and minus 45. We'll set the next one at the 0.90. And again, same kind of thing where you want to start in the center, work your way out. Always start at the center, always work your way out, if you can help it. I don't exactly know how long this live is going to go, so if you're curious about how long you're going to be tuning in for, it could be about an hour, 45 minutes maybe. I don't know. A little bit more tack down here. So I'd rather err on the side of less spray tack than more spray tack. I see some people that just load the spray tack on, and I don't understand why. There's no need for that. Once the part is under vacuum, nothing's going to go anywhere anyway, so. The only thing the spray tack is for is to help you with assembly a little bit. So you do not need to go nuts on it. Just gonna trim off the excess around the part perimeter. Some of these little pieces you can hold on to if you want. I've got a bin of scrap carbon for just miscellaneous projects, and these kind of things come in really handy. So pick and choose what you're gonna hold on to when it comes to your scraps. Some scraps are gold, some scraps are scraps and deserve to go in the trash. All right, next round of 6K twill, and same thing. I'm gonna flip this around here for a second. And this one we're gonna target at about a 30-degree angle. So somewhere less than that. There we go. Somewhere less than the 45 that we put on. And the idea behind this is, since I'm putting 3 layers down here, we'll have the first one going 0-90, the second layer 6K going 30 and 60, and the third layer I'll put down at 45 and 45. And hopefully we've got a very, very, very rigid, dimensionally stable part. Especially at the speeds that these cars are going, that these things are going on. I mean, these are going on 200-mile-an-hour plus cars. So we want to make sure that we're doing the best job we can when it comes to trying to make a really strong part. Need a little bit more spray tack down there. And again, less tack is better. You do not need to overdo it on your spray tack. Too much spray tack is actually a bad thing. At least I think so. They say that it's composite safe, but I don't trust it. There we go. And we're going to trim this up. Again, pick and choose what scraps you're holding on to. Oh, that side can stay long. We don't need to trim that side anymore. Next layer going down, another layer of our 3K plane weave. And since the last one went 0.45, this one's going to go 0.90. I should say, sorry, the last one went plus and minus 45. This one's going down 0.90. want to make sure that there's no areas that start to feel like they're not touching. You really want to make sure that fabric is down nice and tight everywhere it can be. Don't want any bridging. Template down one more time here. And here comes our final layer of carbon. Again, this is 6K carbon twill. Little hit of spray tack. And this one is going down plus and minus 45. Pretty close to it. We're not actually getting the measuring tape out and measuring it, I'll tell you that, but you just need to eyeball this stuff. It'll be good enough. So yeah, this is our 5th layer of reinforcing fabric. I think we've got enough. Material here. This is going to be a nice strong part. And again, I've run a bunch of these before over the years, so I know that this is a tried and true lamination schedule. We're going to set the template down here. Cut off a couple excess pieces. And there, we are home free at this stage. All the carbon reinforcements are down. Okay. So we'll get this quick little wipe around the perimeter just to kind of get all the loose carbon strays here and there. At least off around the perimeter here. Or we try anyway. Some are going to get stuck with the in-mold clear coat and the spray tack. It's not the end of the world. Not for what we're doing anyway. So, we've got everything down nice and tight. The next thing going down is our peel ply and flow release. And what this does is the blue stuff on the backside here is actually perforated, so resin will go through and go into it, and it will help limit the amount of resin that's going into the part a little bit. It'll help give it a much better flow channel. And so with this stuff, what I like to do is I like to peel off the backing layer. And I will end up spray tacking the part spray tacking our release film. And then this kind of gets smashed down very similar to carbon, except it may wrinkle a little bit, and that's okay. It's not exactly designed to go around curvy stuff. It's more designed to go around flat shapes. So you just do the best you can do. Work out what you can work out. And if there are a couple wrinkles in it, not a big deal at the end of the day. That's really good. Looks wonderful. Got a pair of fancy electric shears. Now with this stuff, I will end up going, I don't want to say close to the edge of the mold, but I'll go closer than I am with the carbon fiber. I want it to cover the carbon. Now the way I have set this mold up is I've got a feed side and a vacuum side. And typically what I do is I will set up the feed side here. And the reason why I do that is because I want the resin to actually start flowing before it hits the part. In theory, during a vacuum infusion, there should be equal pressure on the whole thing. But when doing a crossflow infusion, sometimes you'll have a little bit of extra resin on the feed side. So to do that, I just bump this back just a little bit to make sure the resin front is actually moved off of the feed line a little bit before the part starts. And we can put our vacuum manifold on this side here. One thing I am going to do you know what, maybe I'll switch to this peel ply instead. This is a little bit more breathable peel ply. I might just switch this real quick. See if this wants to pull off with any ease. Not really. That's okay. I'm still going to throw a layer of this peel ply down, I think. I didn't realize I had enough of that. That's okay though. The reason I'm throwing this down is I want to make sure there's a good barrier between the vacuum manifold and the carbon. There we go. That's all good. There we go. And then our orange flow media. This you can use a fairly liberal amount of spray tack on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right, so what I'm going to do with this, again, we're going to start from the center and work our way out. This side is going to be our feed side. So what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to end up cutting this fairly short. This does not cut very easy, just to let you guys know. I keep multiple pairs of scissors around for infusion stuff, and this one gets the dirty pair of scissors because it just tears up good new scissors. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about consumables and disposables and materials and all that kind of fun stuff. At any given time, I've got a fresh pair of scissors to actually cut the fabric, a medium duty scissors to actually, general purpose, cutting bag tape, stuff like that, and then an older pair of scissors that I use just for the flow media. Like I said, it is a son of a gun. So now that we're coming to the flow side and vacuum manifold side, I use this product called Soric, and this is a 1/8 inch 3mm flow media, core material is what they call this. It's a core material. So it's designed for infusions where you're putting this in between two layers of carbon, and this actually makes a really, really strong reinforcement. But what I use it for in terms of infusion stuff is I will end up putting it on the vacuum manifold. And that gives the resin a little extra something to have to try to fill before it actually hits our vacuum line. And for our vacuum line, we're using a membrane vacuum hose. This is made by AirTech as well. And so what I can start doing now is I've got some gum tape. What I'll do is I'll wrap my vacuum hose, stick it down to the actual mold surface, and here's where I start peeling off that yellow tape around, that green tape around the outside perimeter. It doesn't need to be green tape, it can be yellow tape or blue tape, whatever, it don't matter, right? Tape is tape. But I'll usually give this a couple loops, and then I'll grab my not mint scissors, put it that way. a little bit of the gum tape, bag tape right down there before I actually set my vacuum manifold. I find that helps the bag seal a little bit better around this. Some people like to poke a hole in the top of the bag and do their vacuum manifolds. I don't. I like going around the perimeter on my vacuum stuff. To me, I've had a couple issues, just little leaks and stuff like that. Nothing completely crazy, but I've just found that going through the perimeter gives me a better chance of having a leak-free infusion. I need to find some tape. Yeah, this will work. This will work. We're just going to tape that vacuum manifold down. That might not be enough tape. Let's see. Yep, that'll work. Perfect. Perfect. That's just to hold that in place. So now what's happening is this, the vacuum manifold here that I have, that's this. Basically, since it's sitting on that core material underneath it, the resin's going to come across here and flow. And when it hits the end of this flow media, it's going to have a much harder time getting across to the manifold. And it's still going to go pretty quick. But what's going to happen is this manifold is going to stop resin from going into my vacuum line. And so like I said, having that soric core material below that really helps out when it comes to just the resin having a little extra time before it starts hitting the vacuum manifold to really fill the part cavity. For our feed line, nothing fancy, 3/8 inch plastic hose, spiral wrap, pretty standard duty in the industry. Everybody's doing that. I'm sure there's other methods out there. Now, one thing I should talk about here quick is there are a lot of factors that play when it comes to resin flow and control of the resin speed. One of those factors is obviously your resin. In this case, I'm going to be using the Premium Resin Tech RDR 3400. This is a room temp, room set, room cure epoxy, and it's still good to 200 degrees after it cures out. So that's a pretty awesome epoxy. You can post cure it and it even gets better from there, but for a room temp, it works really well. But the viscosity of your resin makes a big difference when it comes to how fast the resin is going to go across your part. The other thing that makes a huge difference is the flow media itself. There are a lot of different flow medias on the market, and some are faster than the others. Here, let me prop this up a little bit. We can get a little better color maybe. Sorry, guys. Hey, I'm new at this YouTube live stuff, all right? So the other thing that makes a big difference on it is not aside just the flow media, but your spiral tube, how long this is. Because if you've got a spiral wrap that only goes out a couple inches, you're going to have less resin getting fed into the feed system. So that'll really slow down the resin control speed. Whereas if you have a feed line that is longer, obviously there's more resin getting put into your flow media, so you're going to have a little bit faster flow rate. And that's something to consider when you're doing your mold design. It might take you a couple parts before you figure out how fast you want to run. And also that's a pretty big, you got to learn your epoxy system. You have to learn your materials. And so without running a few parts, you really don't know what you're going to get. Without years of experience or some very expensive CNC programming material, I should say computer simulated material, and you can enter all the factors like your resin viscosity and your mold size and your layup stack and et cetera, and it'll figure out what your resin speed is going to be. For what we're doing, I've never had to actually go to the computer and figure it out though, so. That's about right. we're stuck, same thing. There we go. So there's our feed side. We're going to run that down here. And you may or may not want to try to stretch the hose out a little bit. I don't know. It's 6 one, half a dozen the other, if that actually makes any difference. But some people like to stretch it out. I find just naturally relaxed works just fine for everything I've done on it so far. Again, we want to tape that down nice and good. So another thing I do on the feed side, and again, this is just kind of tricks of the trade. Over the years, I've had a couple issues with certain vacuum bag films that actually get caught into the peel or into the spiral wrap. So what I do as a precaution is I cover my spiral wrap with the flow media or a peel ply or anything, or even tape. It doesn't really matter what you cover it on the top side. As long as that vacuum bag can't get into the little pinches, you'll be good. So in this case, I'm just going to use some standard coated peel ply. You want to use a shears when you're cutting peel ply. It does not cut with scissors, just to give you guys a heads up. I should say it doesn't cut well with scissors. It will cut. If you got a brand new pair of scissors, yeah, it'll totally work. But I don't like to wreck brand new scissors on consumables like that. Keep your brand new scissors for the carbon fibers. There we go. All right, so there we go. This is our official mold layup. So we've got our resin feed side going down here. We've got our resin vacuum, or our vacuum manifold over here. We've got flow media. We've got all our fabric stacks set to rock and roll. The only thing left to do is put the vacuum bag down now. For anybody still following along, you guys are rock stars. I know that this is a process that gets a little long from time to time. I'm just gonna measure this. I can't remember which side is longer. I don't know how I set that down. So there's about that's about 35, and this must be our 36, 38. Sorry, I feel like a noob here. I thought I had this planned out, and I guess I didn't do a good job of that. So that's our 30. That's our 35. Okay. Yep, I did have it the right way. So what I like to start with the vacuum bag, like I said, I have the gum tape on here already. This is going to get a little noisy, just so you know. So I like to start in the corners. Just to lock everything in real nice. This is a fairly easy part to set up. When it comes to doing a vacuum bag, it's relatively flat. There are some very, very, very complicated molds that you need a lot of pleat work. This one's a pretty easy when it comes to the vacuum bag. One thing you don't want to do, is you do not want to stretch your vacuum bag. Very critical that you don't stretch a vacuum bag. Pull that off. All right, so now all that tape that was protecting the edge from doing all our spray glues and stuff like that is all set to rock and roll. Do a little bit of pleat work down here in the corner around that resin inlet. I will do the same thing over here around that vacuum inlet. These don't need to be huge pleats, but you just want to make sure that there's no bag stretching. There we go. You want to apply pretty good pressure on this. I'm going to throw a pleat right here. And just a small pleat right there. That's what we got left. I could have used a few more inches on that one, but that's all good. We're going to copy that same thing to this side. Sorry, I'm kind of going a backwards way here. There we go. Okay. So there's our vacuum bag all set up. Thanks for bearing with me. I know this process kind of goes a little bit longer than people think it goes. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do with this channel is to educate you guys and let you know, like, this is not something that you just do in 20 minutes. Like, the setup is going to take you, 2-3 hours sometimes for a more complex part. This one's going by relatively quickly, but until you do a few of these over and over and over again, this is going to take you some learning. And don't be scared. You're going to get it. It'll be fine. But just don't be surprised when it takes, a little bit longer than what the YouTube videos normally show you. Because normally everything is so cut and chopped and condensed down to 20-minute videos for everyone that you're missing a lot of the steps and a lot of the, I don't want to say the struggle of it, but things come up when you're doing this stuff every once in a while. Maybe you want to add different reinforcements or change your flow meter around, or maybe something doesn't stick right. What I like to do around the vacuum bag is just kind of give it a once over before I actually hit the vacuum pump. Oh, I shouldn't have done that yet. Sorry, I got a half a step ahead of myself. That's okay. Speaking of vacuum pump, leaving the input feed sign slightly cracked will help you adjust the vacuum rate when you're pulling the bag down. If you need to make an adjustment or loosen up, you can just add a little air quick, and there we go. All right, I think we're ready to turn the vacuum pump on and draw this down. I hope this isn't too loud for you guys. Might want to start running around that perimeter. Kind of sort of clamp our line here. You'll know when the vacuum starts to really, really get good. There we go. Now we can really start to hear the little pinhole leaks that are happening. I can literally hear the vacuum leaks. They're very, very, very minor, but see, that's really, really nice and tight. I'm going to go check our vacuum gauge and see what we're sitting at. But ultimately, we should be at a full vacuum. Or near it by now. So take a look. Yep, and we are sitting at about 28.5 inches. A lot of guys like to see 30 or 29. I found that it really doesn't matter as long as you have a leak-free bag. That's the most important part in an infusion, is that it just does not leak. I have not found a big difference between shooting an infusion at 25, 26, 28 inches. As long as it's leak-free, that is the most important thing. Your absolute vacuum difference is not as important as people make it out to sound. So I kind of warned you guys in the beginning that this was going to be a two-part, because I don't want to just let you guys sit around and wait for me to do a drop-down test, which once I'm all happy here, which I am, I will let this sit for about half an hour and make sure that there's absolutely no vacuum drop. And that's very, very, very critical when it comes to shooting an infusion. Like I said, the most important thing is you have a leak-free bag. So if nobody has any questions, I don't know what time it is right now exactly, but meet me back here in half an hour, and I'll do a drop-down test, and we can shoot this infusion together, and you guys can watch the resin actually flow across the part and how it's supposed to go down. I'll probably do that a little bit closer too, just so you can kind of see the resin flow. But yeah, we're set to go. There's your race car wheel disc cover carbon fiber infusion setup. Grey Duck Josh, over and out. I will see you guys half an hour.